Maybe don't know.
This time, next time to build. This 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 time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I am your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to episode 36 of the Power Company Podcast, brought to you by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. I am sitting here right now in Lander, Wyoming, back home, as the case may be, and the road trip has officially ended. We did our last climb at Devil's Tower a couple of days ago. I took Annalisa to the top of the tower. I actually told her on our very first date that I was going to take her up Devil's Tower, so I finally made good on that promise nearly 8 years later. And we got to hang out with Frank Sanders there, which was really cool because I've corresponded with Frank for a long time, and it's really fun to meet such an interesting, inspiring character. I mean, the guy's still taking people up the tower every day, and he's damn near 70. Pretty cool. First off, I want to thank you guys. I just went over and looked at some of the reviews on our iTunes, and I've been asking you guys to go and review the podcast. I'm looking for 100 reviews by the end of 2017, and we are over halfway there. Every time I've asked you guys to do something, you're responding, and thank you for that. That's amazing. I love it. I did have a question that I kind of want to answer because I didn't know the answer to it. Someone asked me, how on earth do you review a podcast on your iPhone? And it's not super obvious. So if you haven't reviewed us yet and you're listening on your phone, go right now to do it, and I'll walk you through it. You can do it while listening to the podcast, so no need to pause it. You just go into your podcast app, you hit the search tab, and enter Power Company Podcast in the search. When it pops up, you tap on our logo. Any of them, doesn't matter which, just tap on the logo. That'll bring up the podcast, and then you'll see a review tab there. If you tap on that review tab and then click write a review at the bottom of the screen, then you can tell the world all about how cool we are and how obsessed you are with the podcast. Or you can just tell them how much we suck. It's really up to you. Be honest. That's all I ask. So go ahead and do that now. I'll wait. Okay, that's enough time. You guys can keep typing while I'm talking here. I do want to highlight a couple of the reviews we've gotten recently. Number one from Kevin McCarthy 01. He says, Chris and Nate are incredible. These guys know their stuff. The podcast is on point with engaging discussions and great questions. You'll learn new skills to be a smarter and stronger climber. Shout out to the Boulder Better session they hosted at Climb So Ill. I learned skills to strategically attack a boulder and analyze my performance. Thanks, guys. And a shout out to Beta Fund, because why not? Absolutely, Kevin. Shout out to Beta Fund, because we love what you guys are doing over there in the Midwest. So thanks for coming out to the workshop and for doing the work you do over at the Beta Fund. We appreciate that. And one other one we just got recently from Effie Love. He says, Chris and Nate nail it more often than not. That's good to hear. I'm glad that ratio exists, because I know sometimes we don't nail it. But he says, they give safe, sound advice that resonates with my own background as a rugby player and power lifter with a lot of formal strength training. Any climbers without much of a training background need to listen to this podcast. Thanks so much, guys, from the crew at the Obed. Thanks, Effie. I really appreciate that. And Effie recently became a patron of the podcast, which I also appreciate hugely. So thank you for that. And, if you guys haven't become a patron and you want to, you can do that at patreon.com/powercompanypodcast. And I'm actually working on some things right now that will give the patrons special access to episodes that only they can hear. And that'll be for all the patrons, $1 a month and up. So if you want to get in on that, pretty soon there will be special episodes just for patrons. All right. Today's episode is a conversation with our coach, Blake Cash, about our new proven plan system and why we went that direction and what that means and how it can benefit you, all of our clients. If you don't have any intention of ever buying a training plan from us, which is totally cool, I encourage you guys to build your own and experiment with that and learn from it. Then you could maybe even skip this episode. However, it's a shorty, and there are some gems in here you can use to help build your own. So I encourage you to keep listening. But first, let's get to know Blake a little bit. Blake was originally a client, and I actually didn't expect him to want to train. So it was a surprise when he did, and I was curious why.
Well, I think I'd gotten by for quite a few years just based off my stubborn personality in rock climbing. And just kind of like, I'd always in the back of my mind thought like, oh, you don't have to train. You just have to put your head down and beat it against the wall.
Yeah. Like you'll just keep improving along this linear path.
Yeah. And and I think that works to a certain point. And I got really good at trying a route for multiple seasons and just dumbing it down and just getting closer and closer incrementally each season. And I think maybe our first season we traveled to Lander in the summer, I kind of realized that there's this whole other style that
right. Yeah.
I'm
pretty radically different.
Yeah. That I'm not very good at. And it was also a style that I realized that I needed to show up as strong, if not stronger than the things I wanted to do, or else I was probably going to hurt myself.
Right.
I remember pulling on the Stetson on the rodeo wave, and one year just randomly decided to check it out. It's just 13C. It's can't be that hard. I've climbed 13Ds,
Right.
And not doing any moves on the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
And being oh, well, never doing this.
Yeah, it's an angry little rock climb.
Yeah. And so I think, that, and then I kind of started hitting a wall here,
Here
climbing.
Chattanooga.
The climbing around Chattanooga for the most part is kind of characterized by, especially the route climbing is characterized by just really hard cruxes.
Yep.
So, it's kind of less like the red where you can climb yourself more or less into fitness for a lot of the routes for the most part. So I kind of realized that, to kind of break through this plateau I'm at, I'm going to actually have to spend a chunk of time in the gym. And I kind of saw what you were doing, and, and I'd seen some of the blog posts you'd made about the app, and you were kind of doing this thing, and I decided to corner you.
And I'm glad that he did. Early on, Blake really dug into the app, and I wanted feedback. I wanted to know how I could make it better, and he was more than willing to give that feedback. And he kept asking how he could help, and I had no idea. I was just starting this business, and the way it started was just I said, help me transfer these blog posts over from Blogspot to Squarespace, because it was a pain in the ass and I didn't want to do it. And he jumped right in and did that, and he said, what's next? What else can I help with? And ultimately the thing that he said to me that made me want to pull him in and figure out a spot for him and how to make it work was, he said that he believed in this movement that I was trying to build, and he wanted to be a part of it. And he was willing to take on whatever tasks I needed, and it didn't take long to discover that he was really good at communicating with me and about feedback and how we could improve what we were doing.
Yeah, I think my personality, I've always been I like to make lists, and I like to check boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at holding myself accountable if I have something that I can look at and I can see.
Right.
So I think from a training perspective, I think being able to pull it up on my phone, look at it, see what I'm doing that day, and go into the gym and not be distracted because I have these things that I have to do, have an objective.
Yep.
And that's kind of the way I approach outdoor climbing too. I feel like I perform better and I train better when I have a big objective. If all of a sudden I don't have anything that I'm necessarily excited on, I tend to get untethered and don't really care so much about what I'm doing.
Yeah, totally.
So I think knowing that about the app and the training and the things that we were doing suited my personality. And then I think I had always, when I was in college, I went to school. I started out trying to be a personal trainer, but I don't think it was the right time for me to do that.
Why did you want to become a personal trainer to begin with? What brought that on?
So I played soccer in college, and during our off season, we'd always, in soccer, you kind of in the off season you lift a lot, and I was one of the smaller guys on the team.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not that small of a dude in the climbing world.
Yeah.
But I played at a D2 school. They were actually the second ranked team in the nation in D2. But the thing about D2 is there's no age limit.
Okay.
So my coach I was actually one of, I think, 4 U.S. players on the team. Everyone else he brought over from Finland or Norway. I mean, we had a guy that was 32.
Wow.
And I was 18. But those guys were huge.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time working with a personal trainer in the off season instead of just kind of lifting in the gym with all the other guys because I was not that big.
Right.
And I remember really liking the kind of the one-on-one kind of relationship that I had.
Yep.
And my coach was also a personal trainer before he became a soccer coach. So he kind of was pushing me in that direction too. So I kind of played around with it for a while. I for lack of a better word, interned with the guy that I was personal training with. And basically just wound up not doing it. I don't really have good reasons.
I think when we're 18, we're easily led astray.
Yeah,
so.
you just try out a bunch of stuff and you don't really do any of it. But
so that one-on-one relationship, I think, is one of the big components of these proven plans that the ebook doesn't have.
Right.
I think the ebooks are a great way to dip your foot into training. And if you're very self-motivated and can hold yourself accountable, then they're great. But having that relationship with a coach is a really important part of it.
Yep.
And I think there's a huge human element to climbing that the ebooks can't address.
No.
Because I can't go in there and write about all the different parts of psychology and emotion that go into this thing.
Yeah.
It would be a book and it would cost a lot more. So, is that something that you're finding with these proven plans, that there's a lot of you become life coach as much as climbing coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, when you choose to go all in on something like training, and a lot of these people that are doing these plans, they have goals, however specific or vague they might be. It might just be, climbing a letter grade harder at their local crag, or it might be specifically I want to do this boulder, or I want to do this route. And I think when you kind of are able to flip your brain into working towards that goal, you start to come up against a lot of demons that you didn't realize you had. And I think that is something that I see kind of coming out of people that I work with sometimes, just kind of dealing with those uncertainties and personally I've dealt with a lot of that. So I feel like I have a bank of experience that I can kind of talk to these people
Yep.
about
And I
it.
think it's important for them to have a neutral voice who's
Yeah.
not just trying to talk to their friends. It's more someone who's been there, been through it, that isn't going to bullshit them and tell them, oh no, you're doing great when you're not doing great.
Or isn't so, like so invested in their success that like I'm gonna tell them everything they want to hear.
Right, exactly.
So
that if someone is causing themselves to fail for whatever reason, either it's too crowded at the boulder they want to do so they won't try it, or if they're afraid of people watching them in the gym or whatever, you can point that out to them through their messages.
And they're I see, I look at the notes that people leave. I get I get an email every morning telling me what people have done the day before, and I can like scroll through it and I see the notes people leave, and I read them because I'm interested in what people have to say, what their experiences are with their workout from the day before, and you can definitely pick out patterns that people are going through. And when I start to see something that I think is pertinent and needs to be addressed, I'll shoot that person a message like, hey, you wanna chat about this? I've been seeing this for the last week and it seems like you're maybe having a negative experience with your training, and generally that person just wants to be heard.
Yeah, totally.
They just want their feelings validated, but they also want to be told like, buck up,
Yeah. And this stuff it's hard, frankly.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people fail at it.
Yeah.
It's why so many people start training and then they bail out.
Yeah.
Is because it fucks with your head, if your training is more about failing than it is about succeeding, and spending 3 months in a place where you're failing almost all the time is hard.
Yeah. And I think, something that a lot of people don't realize at first, especially if they're new to training, is that you're not going to get better in the first couple of weeks. You're probably not going to see many gains in what you're doing. And that's generally when I get the most, stress mail from people. It's in those first couple of weeks, and they're like, I feel like crap.
Yep.
I feel horrible on this workout today.
This is just making me worse.
Yeah, I'm getting worse. I'm falling off the hangboard. I can't do pistol squats.
Right.
I can't complete any of my circuits, et cetera, et cetera. And, I'm like, you've done 7 workout days.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it takes time to connect with the workouts too.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even when I go in and do a workout that I've written, it takes me a few sessions before I'm like, oh, I'm starting to feel the groove of this thing.
Oh, yeah. I got my ass kicked last week. I think I actually texted Aaron, I'm never going to do this workout ever again.
Yeah, totally, man. It's, that's just the nature of it. So keeping people on course is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So before we get too far here, let me just rewind. What is a proven plan and how does it work? Basically, I think it's probably easiest if I give you the quick, brief history of how these things came about. So when I was first writing custom training plans for people, I did it, via Google Docs and via MS Word, and just delivered PDFs to people, and then had to have long conversations with them about describing each exercise, and I didn't have videos for everything. So it made for a laborious, not very efficient method. And that's when I started developing the app that we now use to deliver our training plans through. But I didn't want to let those old school paper plans go to waste. And in the process of building those, I had come up with, the basic templates that were required at each level for most climbers. If you're a 512 climber looking to go to 513, there's some basic things that most people in that category need. And those templates became our eBooks, which were and still are wildly popular. And they're at a really low price point. And then our custom plans are at a much higher price point because it's a lot more work and it's customized to each client. built from scratch. But I wanted something in between. And that's when I decided to take our eBooks, give them some important updates, and load them into the mobile app. And that became these proven plans. Okay, so how does it work? Essentially, once you purchase the proven plan that best fits you, or we can help you choose which one best fits you, we send you a liability waiver and a setup email to download the app and set up an account. And you'll fill out a consultation form that lets us know where we can make a few adjustments that'll personalize the plan a little more. And then the plan is delivered to you via our mobile app, which is available for iPhone and Android. And, you get workouts, each workout laid out for you for each phase of your training plan. And those exercises come with videos and descriptions. And we let you sort of build your own schedule because everyone's is different. So we aren't trying to force a specific schedule on you, though we can help you with scheduling because you have constant, communication with your coach. And I think that's a really important part of these proven plans is the interaction that we can have and this personal communication that you can have with your coach. And I think that's invaluable, frankly. So essentially I built these things because there was a gap that I needed to fill in what I was offering to people. And, but there was something I hadn't even realized about the value of these plans for you guys. I think another reason people really like having these plans is, and this goes for the eBooks as well, but also the proven plans, is because there's so much fucking information out there.
Yeah.
To sort through and wade through. And I think if you're left to your own devices, like we were talking about earlier, you pick out the things you already are good at.
Yeah.
And that you want to do because they sound fun instead of they sound hard, So if you're left to your own devices, you make a training plan that is going to get you exactly where you are right now.
Yeah.
Instead of making you better.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the cool thing about having these proven plans available is, especially for people who haven't trained or who have hit a plateau, there's a really basic formula to get through that with some changes, and a lot of people don't know what that formula is because there's so much bullshit out there to wade through.
Yeah, and I think an important thing to know about the proven plans is that the concepts and the ideas that kind of, to me, define what the power company kind of believes in are present whether you're doing a custom plan or you're doing the proven plan.
Yeah, totally.
Like you can look at, a strength phase in one of the proven plans, and you can look at a strength phase that's custom built, and they're relatively similar in terms of the way we get people to train skill and the way we get people to train strength. Yeah,
the only difference is that the custom plans are a little more pinpointed.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Looking at that specific person and their specific goals and in their specific experience instead of here's the general. Yeah, and when
we get people that have really specific goals for themselves, and if that doesn't fit into what the proven plan can do for them, we send them by way of a custom plan. Yeah, which I think is also important to know that people aren't going to be led astray based off of a proven plan or a custom plan. But I think the gains you're going to see out of the proven plan are just as much as out of a custom plan. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And if I have a 5'14" climber who has some really specific weakness, then I'm not going to say we have a proven plan for you. Exactly. But if you're a general 5'12" climber and you're pretty good at 5'12", then making that next step, there's a lot of different ways you can improve. Yeah. And what these proven plans do is give you a roadmap to how to get to that next level. Yeah.
You know, and you make some customizations. I mean, if they don't have the equipment available or, you know, the time available, there are some simple little changes that you can make and you talk with them about and can implement those things.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, you know, you have people who have specific skills they want to work on, and you know, and that's not present. You know, like those are all things that I can do within the confines of a proven plan and still hold true to the integrity of the proven plan.
Yep. You know, one place I think that the eBooks fall short is that, you know, when and this is a strange, you know, I go back and forth on this. I think that simple is good, and you don't always need to have the new cool toys, you know. But one thing I would like to be able to do with the eBooks is update them easier. And really, you can't do that. Once they're in someone's hands, you can't update it.
Yeah.
You know, you can update what you have and then put them for sale out there again. But midstream, you can't update what people are doing, you know. And that's one of the things I really like about the proven plans is that if we discover a drill or come up with a drill that's super, super effective and we all really love it, then we can just pop it in there, and then every person from then on is going to do it. You know, they're going to have that drill.
Yeah.
And these drills, I think, are the bread and butter of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, building these movement drills and technique drills and really teaching the core principles of climbing and why it works, as opposed to, you know, and making people better climbers as opposed to just stronger climbers. You know, that stuff I think is relatively easy. Like you go hangboard, you lift weights, you limit boulder.
Yeah, we all know how to get stronger.
Yeah.
You lift heavy shit, you hang with heavy shit.
Yeah, it's the getting better that's really tough. You know, and if you go look at any other source, be it Climbing Magazine or Rock and Ice or other coaches or whatever, oftentimes what you see is practice heel hooks, practice drop knees, you know, and that doesn't tell you a fucking thing, really.
No.
If you don't understand the heel hook or the drop knee, what are you practicing? You know, it's this super vague information that doesn't do its job, really.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into a heel hook, you know, like how do you...
Yeah, and I think it's our movement drills that are the real money.
Yep.
You know, and those are a huge portion of these proven plans. What feedback are you getting from your clients with the movement drills?
I mean, people are psyched on the movement drills. I think most people haven't had to really put that much thought into their easier climbing before, which I think is at first can be challenging for people. But I think what I tell people is as long as you're focusing as hard as you can on whatever drill you're doing, you're getting something out of it, and it will get easier.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people, one that people really seem to connect with are the rooting drills.
Yep.
Which I know have, you know, been discussed multiple times in other podcasts. But I think, like, if I had to pick one drill that really, I think, set us apart, I think, like, the concept of rooting, and even, you know, the rooting level 2.
Yep. I get so many messages from clients who are like, "Oh, I sent my project today. Thanks, rooting."
Yeah. Exactly. I think, and I mean, I use it all the time, you know? I think the cool thing about the skill practice and the drills that we give people is, and it's also something that I personally notice, is that it gives me something to focus on when I'm outside too. You know, that whole idea of, like, you know, when I'm in a really hard crux of a route or a boulder, you know, like I can focus on those specific things, like the rooting and the tension, and generally that is the trick.
Yeah, and you know, I think this is something that we didn't necessarily do intentionally, But I think it's a really interesting byproduct of these movement practices that we implement is that awareness and intention is something you also need to practice.
Yeah.
And by giving people these points with which to focus on and things to be aware of and this intention to bring into their session and into each exercise and each warm-up they're doing,
Yep.
that builds their ability to be aware and to have intent with every move. And definitely when you go outside, that transfers over. There's a lot about training in the gym that's tough to make transfer to outside, but your ability to have awareness in what you're doing and what your body does while you're climbing, that transfers over 100%, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the huge takeaways that I don't know if I didn't. Maybe Nate had that in mind. I don't know. But I think that's one of the big takeaways that we never discussed or thought about.
Yeah. And then, it's, for me, it's definitely maintaining that level of like present mind when I'm training is hard.
Yeah.
I'll go 20 minutes through something and realize I haven't been paying attention to anything. I didn't even know what I've been doing. And then having to go back and refocus on what I'm doing, specifically those kind of more nebulous drills like the rooting or the different speeds, like the slow, smooth, the
Right.
contrast, sometimes
Right.
I'm like, I just climbed this boulder 6 times and it's just all the same.
Yep. Totally.
I don't even know what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think mindfulness is a practice just like any other part of your climbing.
Yep.
It's training in and of itself. And I think the more you can focus on what you're doing and why things work and why they don't work, I think the better of a climber you are. And I think we're all stronger than we give ourselves credit for. I just think it's learning how to turn that strength
to access
on
all that,
and how to
yeah.
access it and how to activate those parts of your body more. And I think that's where these drills really shine,
Yeah.
is in kind of like identifying your strength.
Yep. And they're a huge part of every session.
Yeah.
And I just had a phone conversation with one of my guys yesterday, Tyler, and he pointed out that, early on in his climbing practice, he was just going through the motions with the drills, and just expecting, I'm going to do this drill and then something's going to work.
Yeah. And I've seen that from people here, there's some people that I work with or you work with that live here in Chad, and I've seen them in the gym and, they just kind of turn their brain off and they're like, yeah, I'm rooting.
Yeah. And I think that's the first step for a lot of people, because that's what a drill like practice heel hooking. That's what that seems like. I'm just going to go stick my heel on this hold and do it. And eventually something's going to click.
Yeah.
Something will happen and I'll be a good heel hooker.
Yeah.
and I don't think that's the way it works. And Tyler pointed out that that's what he was doing at first. And maybe just through the sheer volume of keep hammering away at these drills, he's started to really connect with some of them and feel like they're making a huge difference in his climbing. More so maybe even than the get more endurance, get more strength sort of exercises that we do as well. And of course those things are important, and we have all sorts of options on how to get those things depending on your equipment. But again, I think the bread and butter's in these movement drills.
I agree.
Yeah. I think we're making better climbers, which I think is better than making stronger climbers, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And we're not trying to be super secretive here. All of our movement drills, at least the ones we've made videos for, which usually happens after they've been proven effective, those can all be found on our YouTube page, which is Power Company Climbing. You should go subscribe. And, of course, that doesn't include how to program or progress the drills or, why you would include these drills into the plan, which is different for every person, honestly. And that's that's part of what you get with these proven plans is, you get our expertise in programming these drills and, like I said, making better climbers. And speaking of which, I got an email from one of Blake's clients, Andrew Andrus, who is a climber in South Africa that Blake mentions in this next segment. And after he finished his first round in the proven plans, he wrote, "Hey Chris and Blake, just wanted to write a quick note and say thanks for all the training. It's super valuable, well worth the price of the program. But I'm really talking about value added to Lindsay and my climbing experience as a whole. We're both feeling so much stronger and more confident and really enjoy going into each session with a plan that we know produces results." And he went on to write, speaking of learning, another Power Company climbing customer, Tyler Algio, was just in Kenya, and he came up to the gym for 2 nights. And it was awesome having someone here who speaks the language. He really took some quality time with Lindsay and I, working on our limit techniques and approaches, as well as helping us understand the level 2 routing. So even more kudos on training clients who are willing and happy to help. Even though he's not a coach, he was able to pass on some things he learned from training with Chris that were just awesome. Really great work. We're happy customers. And, that's all I need to hear to know that these things are both effective and valuable. And having Blake work with these clients and pass on, the things that I deem extremely valuable, both the idea of learning and awareness, as well as just feeling stronger, and the community aspect of what we're trying to build here, that means a lot to me. And of course I want my coaches to continue learning as well and learning from their clients. So I asked Blake, if there was anything he was surprised by in this journey of, becoming a communicator, the way that he has.
I'm finding myself, and I think you've mentioned it before too, as excited about the success of the people that I'm working with as I am my own.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool, and I think these people, when you train people and you work with people, you get it's a pretty personal thing, those kind of relationships you build with those people, and even people you've never met before, you know, just like I was training a couple that live in Kenya, and talking to them every week, and, they just emailed me back and they're psyched to start again, and, just kind of hearing about their successes and how they're so much stronger than they were before they started the plan, I think is really exciting to me, because it's nice to be validated, like, oh man, this stuff works.
Yeah,
it really
totally
does work. And, and over every time I hear it from someone, I'm like, of course it works, but I'm like, oh yeah, it does work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You just kind of keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, like, oh man, it doesn't. No, it does. Every person's like, man, it works.
Yeah.
It actually works.
Well, that's good. And I'm hearing from your clients as well, because I reach out to everybody now and then just to, see what's going on and see if they need anything. And, I'm aware that I was the face of this thing when it started, and that a lot of people end up on board because of me.
Yeah.
But I don't think that, I'm the last stop. So I think that having you and Nate on board is huge. And I've talked to a lot of your clients, and they, across the board, all of them are like, it's been really great working with Blake. He's, he answers my messages and, gives me great insights into what I need to be doing. And so they're all having a great experience working with you. And I think that, I could put out a million different training plans, I could dial it down to, all sorts of little things that need to change for different types of people. And I could sell all those and never have a, personal experience with anybody.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is about, that would suck. And we're trying to build this. The number one idea that you and Nate and I have talked about is building a community around this thing.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's these personal relationships are so important. And I think that's what I'm seeing right now is your strength, is that you're really good at communicating with these people. Even if it's in short little communications, they're getting a lot out of it. So I value that a ton, and I'm glad that you're at the helm of this proven plan thing. So
yeah, it's good. I mean, I want to make sure that everyone has as much information as they need about what they're doing, I mean, even if it's just like little cues to focus on, everything from that to the life coach thing we were talking about. I think it's fun to talk to people and get to know them and make sure that all the bases are covered.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, man.
Yeah,
I think we've got everything.
Awesome.
We got covered enough. Okay, I hope that gives you a better idea of what our proven plans are about. We've had tons of questions from people on what the differences are, and if you want to learn a little more or just explore the options over there, you can go to powercompanyclimbing.com and click on the proven plan banner at the top of the page, and that'll take you to a page that explains quite a bit of what's going on over there and shows you some of your options and links you to all the others. And most of you who sign up will be working with Blake. Some of you will also work with Nate or myself. And if you happen to want to do the Kettlebells for Climbers proven plan, which is going to be brand new today, then you'll be working with Paul Corsaro, who is our strength and conditioning coach over here, and an amazing strength and conditioning coach. So, we've got options for all sorts of people looking for all sorts of things, and really every level of climber, up to a certain point where you obviously need a custom plan. But please definitely go look into it. And one more time, if you haven't given us a review yet over on iTunes, we're looking for 100 by the end of 2017. We're over halfway there, so please go do that now. And if you want to become a patron, we're going to have patron-only episodes coming soon. You can do that at patreon.com/powercompanypodcast. And, of course, share us on your social medias. Share us on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Pinterests. You can share us on your Twitters, but you won't find us twittering because we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build, 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 this time power, this time to build power, this time to build power, this time to build power. 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 This time to build. 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 This time to build.